Hey everyone! In today's video, we're going to take a look at one of the most iconic and legendary games in chess history, played way back in 1834. The game was between Alexander Macdonald, a brilliant chess master, and Louis de la Bourdonnais, who was considered the strongest player in the world at the time. In this match, the main focus will be on how the game unfolded through Macdonald's perspective. The moves in this game are so unique, and the way pawns became the real heroes is just mind-blowing. Let's dive in. Macdonald opens with e4, the king's pawn opening, and La Bourdonnais responds with the Sicilian defense, c5. The Sicilian is a bold, aggressive defense that often leads to unbalanced positions and sharp tactical battles. Macdonald develops his knight to f3, attacking the d4 square and preparing to develop. In response, La Bourdonnais develops his knight to nc6, aiming to control the center and support a future d5 push. With d4, Macdonald immediately strikes in the center, challenging black's control. La Bourdonnais captures on d4, opening up the position and creating some tension early on. Instead of moving his knight elsewhere, Macdonald recaptures on d4 with his knight. Meanwhile, La Bourdonnais strikes back with e5, looking to dominate the center and gain space. A knight exchange occurs on c6. La Bourdonnais recaptures with his b-pawn, which strengthens his central control and opens the b-file for potential rook play later. Macdonald develops his bishop to c4, putting pressure on f7, a vulnerable spot for black. In turn, La Bourdonnais develops his knight to f6, eyeing e4 and preparing for kingside development. Macdonald develops his other bishop to g5, pinning La Bourdonnais' knight on f6 to the queen. This move is part of a standard plan to weaken black's kingside. La Bourdonnais responds with b7, breaking the pin and preparing to castle his king to safety. Macdonald brings his queen out to e2, preparing to castle while also keeping pressure on the center. La Bourdonnais, feeling the pressure, strikes with d5, challenging Macdonald's central pawn and gaining space. The bishop captures f6, removing one of La Bourdonnais' key defenders. La Bourdonnais recaptures with his bishop, maintaining a solid grip on the center. Macdonald retreats his bishop to b3, continuing to pressure the f7 square, while also keeping an eye on d5. La Bourdonnais castles, ensuring his king's safety and connecting his rooks. Both players castle, bringing their kings to safety. Now, La Bourdonnais plays a5, looking to expand on the queen's side and possibly push a4 to restrict Macdonald's options. Macdonald captures on d5, opening the center. La Bourdonnais recaptures with the c-pawn, strengthening his control of the center and opening the c-file. The rook moves to d1, aligning it with the d5 pawn, while La Bourdonnais pushes d4, grabbing more space and creating a passed pawn. Macdonald strikes back with c4, challenging black's pawn, structure, and freeing up his pieces. In response, La Bourdonnais moves his queen to b6, eyeing b2 and preparing to double his rooks on the e-file. Macdonald moves his bishop to c2, keeping an eye on the king side. La Bourdonnais responds with bb7, reinforcing the pressure on the c2 bishop and claiming the long diagonal. Macdonald moves his knight to d2, eyeing key squares and preparing to blockade. La Bourdonnais places his rook on e8, reinforcing pressure on e4 and the center. Macdonald places his knight on e4, controlling the center and restricting La Bourdonnais' options. La Bourdonnais plays bd8, repositioning his bishop to prepare for future breaks in the center. Macdonald pushes c5, attacking the d4 pawn and creating a passed pawn. La Bourdonnais responds with qc6, preparing to double rooks on the e-file and keeping pressure on the center. Macdonald plays f3, solidifying his control in the center and preparing for a more defensive posture. La Bourdonnais develops his bishop to e7, eyeing the central pawns and potentially preparing to break with f5. Macdonald develops his rook to c1, lining up with the c5 pawn and increasing pressure. In response, Bourdonnais pushes f5, attacking the knight on e4 and expanding on the king side. Macdonald checks with queen to c4, forcing Bourdonnais' king to move to h8. But after this move, Macdonald is faced with more complications. Bourdonnais is now threatening several powerful moves. Macdonald moves his bishop to a4, increasing control over d7 and keeping his options open. But Bourdonnais is quick to respond, placing his queen on h6, threatening to infiltrate Macdonald's position. Macdonald decides to trade bishops with bishop captures on e8, but Bourdonnais recaptures with pawn captures on e4, maintaining central control and opening the path for more pawns. Macdonald pushes his c-pawn to c6, creating a dangerous passed pawn. Bourdonnais responds by capturing with pawn captures on f3, sacrificing material to push his pawns forward. Macdonald moves his rook to c2, hoping to mount some defense. But Bourdonnais forces Macdonald's king to move with queen to e3, check. The pressure is building, and Macdonald is forced to respond. Macdonald moves his king to h1, trying to avoid the worst of the check. Bourdonnais plays bishop to c8, repositioning his bishop and preparing to push more pawns forward. Macdonald tries to hold on with bishop to d7, controlling key squares. But Bourdonnais pushes f2, threatening to promote the pawn. Macdonald places his rook on f1, aiming to block the advancing pawn. Bourdonnais pushes d3, and the passed pawns are now almost unstoppable. Macdonald moves his rook to c3, but Bourdonnais captures the pawn on d7, further advancing his pawns and dominating the position. Macdonald pushes his c-pawn again, but Bourdonnais responds with pawn to e4, advancing another pawn and threatening promotion. Macdonald tries queen to c8, hoping to create some threats, but Bourdonnais responds with bishop to d8, preventing any counterplay. Macdonald moves his queen to c4, but Bourdonnais sacrifices his queen with queen to e1, sealing Macdonald's fate. Bourdonnais pushes d2, and the promotion is inevitable. Macdonald has no defense left. Macdonald tries to slow things down with queen to c5, but Bourdonnais plays rook to g8, preparing for the final checkmate. Macdonald moves his rook to d1, but Bourdonnais pushes pawn to e3, and now there's no way to stop the promotion. Macdonald tries one last defense with queen to c3, but Bourdonnais captures with queen captures on d1, and it's checkmate. And that's how this game earned its place in chess history. With an incredible series of pawn sacrifices, Bourdonnais demonstrated the true power of pawns and forced Macdonald into a checkmate he could not escape. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Let us know if you saw the brilliant pawn storm coming. See you in the next one.